That is when you really go into the teaching of compassion. These are, you see, there's a very famous prayer called Precious Sublime Bodhichitta, may it rise in whom it has not yet risen. May it never fail where it has risen, but go on increasing further and further. That's the most famous prayer of Bodhichitta, in which the entire teaching of Bodhichitta is included in that. In Tibetan, Chamchu Semchu Rumbo Che Machipanam Chejuchi, Cheba Nyamba Mepa Kone Konde. In fact, the great master Patrumbache used to remember this great work, which is the basis of all the teaching on Bodhicitta, called the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, called Bodhicitta Avatara by Shantideva, which according to Patrumbache, he can bring that within these 4 lines. That the whole Bodhicitta Avatara, the 10 chapters, can be summed up into this 4-line prayer. But not only that, according to this approach of Zindi, the entire teaching of Bodhicitta can be summed up. And this is very good, because then each time you say Precious Sublime Bodhicitta, it like evokes the entire teaching, the complete teaching of Bodhicitta. Once it's put within the frame of this and you know this, it's kind of a reminder of the entire Bodhicitta. You got it? First is what? First is Changchup Semchu Rinpoche, which is Precious Sublime Bodhicitta. What is the Precious Sublime Bodhicitta? Is wanting all sentient beings attain the perfect level of enlightenment. Remember earlier we said, for the sake of others longing to attain perfect. That's Precious Sublime Bodhicitta. The first aspect is when you see focusing on sentient beings with compassion, and you wish them how they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering, and have happiness and cause of happiness, so on. Okay? That's the first. But now, you see, the second aspect focuses not on the sentient beings, but on the complete enlightenment through wisdom, and is directed towards helping all sentient beings attain Buddhahood. And that's Precious Sublime Bodhicitta. And may it rise in whom it has not risen. How to give birth to Bodhicitta, how to arouse Bodhicitta, how to awaken Bodhicitta. You see, in the beginning it says, Precious Sublime Bodhicitta, may it rise in those whom it has not risen. How to give birth to Bodhicitta. That birth is through the meditation on what is called 4 immeasurables. Immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, immeasurable equanimity. These are the 4. That's why you do in the practice, by the power and the truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and causes of happiness. That's love, immeasurable. May all be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. That's immeasurable compassion. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is sorrowless, is joy. May all dwell in equanimity that is free from attachment aversion, is equanimity. It's interesting, you know. You say, may all have happiness and cause. You know, really, I think to put it even very simply, you know, when you really pray from the depth of your heart, you really, when you wish that may all beings be free from suffering, may all beings be happy and have the cause of happiness when you pray. When you say, may all beings be happy, but that also happiness, in order for that happiness to stay, they should have the cause of happiness. And what is the cause of happiness? Is that when beings have wisdom, when they develop wisdom and compassion, positive emotions, and when they act positively, it brings happiness. So wish them, may they be positive. May they develop wisdom and compassion. May they engage in positive actions so that may have the cause of happiness. You really wish them. May they be happy and may they have the causes of happiness. That's love. When you wish all beings, that's called immeasurable, because object is immeasurable, attitude is immeasurable, fruition is measurable, hence it's called immeasurable. Then next is, may all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. and you truly wish them, particularly when you see the suffering of beings, you're really moved, you wish them, truly may I, you see, and then of course if you can do Tonglen, it's even better, may I take upon the suffering of others. May I give my happiness to them. And in that, you say, may they be free from suffering. And then, the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Is ignorance and negative emotions and negative action. May they be free from that. You pray. Really, mean it. And if you want, you can invoke all the Buddhas. Then the next thing is very important. May all dwell in the happiness, sacred happiness, that it's sorrowless. Then you see, when someone is truly happy, without any problem, without any suffering, and then you wish, may they always stay like that. May they always stay like that. That joy. Because also, I realize something as you get older. When you're younger, you're a little bit happier, isn't it? Recklessly happier. Sometimes, depends on what kind of young person you are, Sometimes when you're younger, you kind of have more excitement. But as you become older, particularly if you've been through a lot of troubles and difficulties, it kind of a little bit wears out. And you cannot be that enthusiastic or, because you're a little bit dampened by all the stories of problems and sufferings. And so always you think, maybe even if you're happy, you think maybe, well, I'm happy now, but when is the problem coming next? Yeah. So you can never really be happy. You're always a little bit worried like that, You're praying that may they not be like that. May they be just happy. What I'm saying is, may all never be separate from the happiness that's sorrowless. Is that really to say, may all be really, when you're really happy, when you're really exhilaratingly happy, and happy, then without any sorrow, without a worry in the world, you just pray, may they be happy like that. May they be joyful like that. Joy is very important, by the way. Joy is very important. May they be joyful like that. Clear? You understand? And then the last things, may they dwell in the great equanimity, free of attachment, aversion. Because you see, when you have a strong attachment, is the cause of suffering. When you have strong aversion, that's the cause of suffering also. May all be very, may they all dwell in the equanimity that is free of attachment, aversion. May they not have too much attachment, too much aversion. That to start with. But the teaching, when you talk about really compassion teaching, then that we can hear later. Equanimity is very important. But equanimity is what? Because actually when you meditate on this, you begin with equanimity first. Even though the teaching says love, compassion, joy, equanimity. But when you really practice, you start with equanimity. Equanimity is when you begin to realize that actually when we look into, when we look into and consider somebody as a friend, we love them, an enemy, we hate them. But if you really look over a time, sometimes your worst enemy that you hated may become your best friend through some situation. And your best friend or your lover or your husband or your wife become your worst enemy. So where we attach now and sometimes we so much attachment for one person, afterwards that person becomes that person you cannot stand. And whereas somebody you hated, he becomes best friend. So where is the ultimate reality? But then when you look into that from this life point of view, but if you look from the past life, in the teaching speak of. We have been in this for many, many eons, in that we all been connected with each other. As brothers, sisters, husband, wives, father, mother, enemies, all we've been through everything. So therefore, best thing is to love all beings. Love all. You see, you understand? Because then it's safe. Really. Love all beings. So that's why, then it becomes measurable. It's only through equanimity. Otherwise, we can love our friends, but not our enemy. So it's limited love. When you begin to love all beings, it's called immeasurable. We have compassion, all becomes universal compassion. But to do that, you need the equanimity, that realization that all beings have been connected with us. And that realization is very important in order to really have that, So if you have the realization also, whenever I see any being, anybody reacts to you negatively, anything, you begin to not see them as enemy, but you begin to see them from a karmic, historical, eyes. You begin to see them as perhaps your father, mother, someone closest love, and who is suffering. So only that, when you see someone is suffering like that way, then compassion goes for them. So you can take, with your compassion, you can take their anger and you can give love to them. Next is way for it to never fail, but go on increasing further, is
to arouse the Supreme Bodhichitta and to train in the precepts of aspiration and action.
Now, to rouse Supreme Bodhichitta and train in the precepts of both aspiration and action. Now that is, putting it very simply, that one is quite loaded, that one. That got almost everything. First is what it says here, way for it never, because this is the summarizing, the root of bodhicitta. Way for it to never fail or never decline, but go on increasing further, is to rouse Supreme Bodhicitta. Now here, when you talk about Supreme Bodhicitta, there are two bodhicittas called Absolute Bodhicitta or Ultimate Bodhicitta, which is connected with wisdom, and then the Relative Bodhicitta, which is training the mind. So that's Absolute and Relative Bodhicitta. Absolute is usually very much, it's connected with the view of shunyata. When you have the deeper perspective, you understand? That's Absolute Bodhicitta, that's connected with wisdom. And the Relative Bodhicitta is, when you talk about wisdom and compassion, Absolute Bodhicitta is wisdom, Relative Bodhicitta is compassion. The two. Now, how do you rouse that? The Absolute Bodhicitta can be realized through meditation, such as shamatha and through vipassana, and slowly when you have the glimpse of the ultimate nature mind, you see. This could be realized through both analysis, like the investigation into the phenomena and the mind, just as in the 7 points of mind training. The training of mind in the Absolute Bodhicitta through really investigation you come to realize, but also through meditative, process. One come to realize as the thinking ego mind or settles and dissolves, then the clear insight of your true nature mind begins to dawn, and that's the wisdom. You got it? Through meditation. Whereas the Relative Bodhicitta is you begin by receiving the Bodhisattva vow. That's the first part. The means by which that it never declines but go on increasing further and further is, first of all, arousing the Supreme Bodhicitta, which has two, Absolute Bodhicitta and Relative Bodhicitta. Absolute Bodhicitta is through meditation, and Relative Bodhicitta is through receiving the Bodhisattva vow. Got it? And then train in its precepts of aspiration and action. Training in the Bodhicitta aspiration is considering others same as ourselves, just as in the Tibetan Book of Living Dying, chapter 11. The whole chapter 11 is based on considering others as same ourselves. Then next level is slowly training in exchanging yourself with others. That's in chapter 12, compassion. And then finally, considering others more important than ourselves, which is like, these are the training of the mind in the bodhicitta of aspiration comes in. Then the training of mind in the bodhicitta of action is generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. So we need to practice these methods for making bodhicitta rise where it has not risen, preventing it from declining where it has risen, and making it not fail but go on developing further and further, whether in detailed way with the four measurables, or in a medium length way with love and compassion, or quintessential way through just compassion alone. That means, you see, if you do want to elaborately, it's four things. Love immeasurable, compassion immeasurable, joy immeasurable, equanimity immeasurable. That's the elaborate full. If you do it the medium way, it's two, love and compassion. Now if you boil down to one, it's just compassion, in which all is included. When you talk about full four measurables, the complete thing is there, detailed. But when you do it in the medium length way, in the detailed way, the four measurables, in the medium length way is the love and compassion, which the equanimity and joy is included. Then a quintessential way, through just compassion alone, in which love is also included. As Zangar Rinpoche explains, the Khenpo Ngakchung now links the four measurables. Say that, Patrick.
You know, when we're describing the prayer, it says the means by which the bodhicitta may arise is through the four immeasurables. But now he says, when we're making the bodhicitta arise, we're preventing it from declining, go on further and further, it's with the four immeasurables. So he's linking it to each phase of the bodhicitta development. Because before we take the vow, the four measurables form a training through which the mind softens up and you develop this determination to serve sentient beings. That motivates you to arouse the bodhicitta by taking the vow, and then after the vow, the four immeasurables become the precepts, and so help you keep the pledge and increase the bodhicitta all the time. And from then on, it's a question of training the mind continuously to increase the strength of your bodhicitta. And here the four immeasurables are vital, though love and compassion will have come more to the fore.
More to the fore meaning more on the front, you know?
And so we can say that all of us, of course, possess love and compassion and joy and equanimity to some extent or another. And in fact, of course, strictly speaking, love and compassion are qualities of our Buddha nature, of our true deepest nature, which is how we can explore them, how we can develop them, and why we can in fact use them in a way to rediscover, to reawaken our enlightened nature. But the love and compassion that we have may make us more noble, they may make us more humane, but they're still limited. They're restricted to one or two people. Or else it depends on us receiving something in return. We love our friends, we don't love our rivals, our enemies. We feel compassion for the poor, but we don't feel compassion for the wealthy. So here, what we're doing is we're taking love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, and we're making them immeasurable. We make them immeasurable by linking them to all sentient beings, universally, everywhere, and to the aspiration of taking all those sentient beings to the state of complete omniscience or Buddhahood. And so we talk of immeasurable in terms of the object, which is all sentient beings, and in terms of our attitude, and in terms of the result, which is that they all attain the state of omniscience.
So that really sums it up. Basically, what is bodhicitta practice? Is for measurables, and then equalizing and exchanging others, and then practice of 6 parameters. So basically, it should all be like when you make a delicious meal with all the ingredients, not the one ingredient not going to come first, and they should all be together. Basically, when you act as a bodhisattva, the 4 measurables should be the way you are, how you are in terms of your, aspiration, and then really you engage in, for example, with the view of absolute bodhicitta, and then in everyday level, training the precept. That means you're always equalizing and exchanging and considering others more important than themselves. And 6 parameters always the, you understand? I'm not explaining it very well, but that's what it is. You got it? Now, so the Kunzana Mekyanung Zindi in the chapter Bodhichitta is divided into 3 main sections. First is training the mind in the 4 measurables, relates to, may it rise in those in whom it has not risen. The second is rousing the mind of supreme enlightenment, the Bodhichitta. And the third is applying ourselves to the precepts of aspiration action, which means may it never decline where it is risen, but go on increasing further and further.